At this point, it's clear that apps like Cursor or tools like Claude or Gemini make me more productive. I can get more code done. However, this boost in productivity, even though it's generally welcome, it's not like these new tools come without any concerns whatsoever. For starters, there's downtime. And oh my, it happens way more often than I would like. It doesn't happen every day, but it definitely happens once a week that I find myself stuck halfway a conversation with an agent, and that I lose a whole bunch of work because of it. Not only that, but it also feels like you can't control how many tokens are being spent, and that you're also not fully in control of how much these tokens actually cost. It all feels relatively affordable right now, and it definitely helps that there's more than one vendor and that there's a bunch of competition happening right now. But who knows? In the back of my mind, there's always this voice that says, well, the vendor might try to double the price at any time. Given all of this, I figured that even though I like my current workflow, and again, I do see a productive boost, maybe it doesn't hurt to take a step back and to have a look at some of the open source models instead of these vendors. It wasn't true a year ago, but right now, thanks to some open standards, as well as some great tools like Ollama, it's never been easier to run a pretty reasonable model locally on your own machine, even if you only have a laptop. Now, to be fair, some of the open models are pretty heavy and they might require a GPU or two to run comfortably, but there's also plenty of lightweight options that you could pick from as well. So all of this led me to a little exercise. What I've done is I've downloaded a bunch of lightweight models on my Mac Mini, and I just started going through them to see how well they perform when it comes to doing things in a Python notebook. I have a little Polars task that I'll explain in a bit, but I just wanted to know, hey, how far away are we from these vendors? How do these models compare, and are they a valid alternative right now? Now, in short, the lightweight models definitely aren't the same as what you can get from a large vendor these days. But if you adapt your technique, I have found that you can actually still get a reasonable performance boost out of them. A lot of it really does depend on how you interact with the model, and I'll show you a good technique in a bit. But before getting to the nitty-gritty, let me just start by explaining the setup that I've got here. So I'm inside of a Marimo notebook right now. I've got this one cell over here where I'm importing some libraries, and this cell over here imports a file that I would like to analyze. Now, this file represents logs from a World of Warcraft server. So I've got this player ID over here, I've got a guild, there's also a race, a class, a level. So you could say that this one player ID was a level 26 orc hunter. But the most important property of this dataset is probably this date time column over here, because this is something that's very useful because it allows you to figure out the sessions. The way this dataset works is that every 10 minutes, all the players that are currently playing are being logged. So you can expect that if someone is still playing, every 10 minutes, there will be a new row and there will be a new date timestamp. So if someone played for an hour, you can expect about 6 of these timestamps to appear. And if there's then a pause of 2 hours and then the player comes back again, you might be able to do something clever that says, okay, this was a play session, and somewhat later it was a different play session. These sessions tend to be incredibly useful for all sorts of reasons. If you want to understand the patterns of how people play, you need them. If you want to figure out bots, like some sessions are suspiciously long, so like knowing how long a session could be is something that's super useful if you want to do bot detection. There's all sorts of reasons why you want to have like a good pipeline to do this sessionization. And I'm wondering, hey, is that something we can tell the LLM to do? The reason why this task is interesting, by the way, is because on the larger scheme of things, it's not the most complex thing to ask, but it's also not the most hello world thing either. We're doing more than just a group by over here. So this task, again, doesn't represent a full benchmark or anything like that, but I do feel that it hits a nice little sweet spot where we're actually doing something that is something you want to do while analyzing. And if the LLM is able to do this right, it could save you a bunch of time. But the LLM can also do it wrong. So we are going to be able to figure out, hey, what are maybe the weaknesses of these local models? Speaking of local models, there's a project called Ollama that I will be using. It is a command line util that just allows you to pull in models from the internet. And the reason why it's so likable is just because the setup is so simple. You install it, you download, and you're basically good to go from that point on. One thing that does deserve to be mentioned is that there are lots of models out there nowadays. I could go over here to explore some of the models. Some of these models have vision support, other models are better at thinking, other models have better support for tool use. What I just ended up doing is I just started looking for code, and I just started looking around for models that had a pretty high number of downloads, but still were somewhat fine-tuned for a programming use case. Now again, not doing a full benchmark, I'm just downloading a few models, and I'm mainly interested in the vibe of, are these models useful, yes or no? Now, in order to use Ollama, you gotta do this little configuration. If you go to the user settings, there is this AI tab that you can click, and from here you can configure all sorts of things related to AI code completion or chat models. In our case, the thing you gotta do is you gotta scroll down, you gotta fill in this base URL, which for Ollama is just your local host and then port 11434/version1. That's the URL, that should be sufficient. And then under that, you just gotta fill in the name of the model that you're interested in using. And note, if you want to use a model, you do have to download it beforehand. If you want to download a model locally, you got to call olama pull, and then you fill in the name of the model you want to have. In this case, I did that up front, and I downloaded a whole bunch of models. The models that I was interested in trying are in the 7 billion to 12 billion parameter range. Roughly, that's between 4 and 10 gigabytes in terms of size. It varies a little bit depending on the model. Maybe it's good to do one of these models live right now, so I'm copying this name, Quen 2.5-Coder 7B. It's a relatively lightweight model. And then I'm going into my user settings, and I'm pasting that name in here. And what I can now do is I can go to this left-hand panel over here, hit this Chat with AI button, and then here I've got a chat interface that can also interface with my notebook live. And the main thing that's kind of nice about this setup is I can just do @ and then point to the data frame that I've defined. And this is a nice way for me to pass context along to the LLM. And the main thing that you can imagine now is that the prompt will actually get injected with a little bit of context. We're going to add the names of all the columns of the data frame, as well as a few examples of some of the rows. And that is something that is very useful for the LLM when they're going to start writing Polar's code. So to compare different models, what I figured I might do is write a prompt, not something mega elaborate, but detailed enough such that I could expect it to do its job. And what I'm saying here is that I have a Polar's data frame, I'm referring to the variable that I defined, and I'm saying that it contains logs of player IDs. A log should appear every 10 minutes or so, and only if they are active on the system. I would like the LLM to write a Python function to sessionize this data for me. If a player hasn't been active for 30 minutes, they need to show a new session ID. And then finally, after that, I'm being extra explicit. I'm saying, look, I want you to make this one function, and I want this function to be useful in a Polar's pipeline. So I expect to be able to run df.pipe sessionize. This is what I want to run at the end. And I like to think adding that little bit of context does help steer the algorithm in the right direction. Anyway, this looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and run this. Next, after waiting for about 20 seconds or so, we have our response. There's a little bit of context that the LLM adds, but the main thing that's of interest, of course, is this code over here. Roughly, it seems to do what I want it to do, so what I could do now is hit this Add to Notebook button, and then I can close this panel for now, and then I can maybe zoom in and see what it did. So right off the bat, it's not perfect because it loaded some requirements that I already had, so I'll just delete those before running. One thing that is cool to see is that it did add type information, so that's nice. And although, just glancing at it, it seems to be alright, I think I've spotted a few issues with this already. So let's just run this and see what happens. There we go. The first complaint here is that the dataframe object doesn't have a method with column. That's because the Polar's API updated a while ago, so I gotta change all of these with column statements to with columns with an S at the end. Let me just replace all of those and let me hit play now. And then it seems that we have a different problem. In this particular case, it's complaining about this diff over here. If I had to guess, I think it's confusing the Panis API with the Polar's API on this one. So there you go. It's not necessarily perfect. It did generate something, but also in fairness, this is definitely one of the lighter models you could try. This is a 7 billion parameter model, and that is on the lighter end of the spectrum. So just before, we used the 7 billion parameter Quen code model. I'm upgrading it now to a 14 billion parameter one. And in this case, I do think the results are somewhat better, but it still doesn't run. The interesting thing here, by the way, is that it is actually able to detect that it should use with columns with an S. And you can see two examples where it's actually doing the right thing. But then when you scroll down, I actually do spot that it's doing the with column without an S as well. So it's an improvement, but it's not consistent across all of the code. And if I look at the error message, something else is happening here as well. This part of the code is doing something with date times, and then this other part of the code is doing something with integers, and it's doing these operations assuming that it can kind of mix and match both, and Polar's doesn't allow that. Maybe Pandas does, I'm not 100% sure, but either way, we are now also dealing with code again that doesn't 100% work. The interesting thing at this point is that I started noticing that the errors that I saw were pretty uniform. All of the open source coding models, both the 7 billion parameter ones as well as the 12 to 13, 14 billion parameter ones, they all kind of seem to confuse the Polar's API with the Pandas API. And if they are able to focus in on the Polar's API, they seem to pick an old version of it. So partially out of curiosity and also partially to explore the space randomly, I figured I might try a Gemma model. The interesting thing about Gemma models is that Gemma models are released by Google. They seem to perform quite well on a bunch of tasks. And the interesting thing here is that they're not specifically trained just for coding. They're somewhat more on the general end of the spectrum. You can also do vision stuff with them, for example. Now, one thing that was interesting with this model is that it did do a couple of things very well that the other models didn't do. Here is the result, by the way. Notice that it adds type information, but it's also adding a doc string. I didn't specifically prompt the LLM to do this, but I do think it's maybe a good practice to do so. But as I was looking at this code, it started to dawn on me that what I'm trying to achieve here is one-shotting everything. I'm trying to get the whole function built after asking just one question. And when that happens, that's always nice, but we can, of course, keep on asking. One thing that Marimo, by the way, allows you to do is it allows you to go to a code block that's broken. In this particular case, that's because there's an invalid operation error. And what I can do is I can hit this fix with AI button, and that's going to open up this prompt basically on this one cell, and it's going to say, hey, LLM, the code you just sent me doesn't work. I'm getting this error message. And this then gives the LLM the opportunity to correct itself. Now, if you're interested, you can inspect the diff. If you see that it still makes a mistake, you can add some extra context and prompt around. If I do that exercise and then look at the final result, then there's still a few tweaks I had to do manually, but looking at the result, it does seem like it's doing what I want it to. There's a couple of columns that have been added. There's the datetime, there's a previous datetime. I can spot the difference in minutes, and then I can also see the session ID that got added. And I can paginate, and I can confirm that the session indeed is increasing per user. So this seems to do what I want it to do. But the way that I got here was by not expecting it to one-shot the thing. I got here by having it start and by keeping me in a loop, making some corrections, iterating, and then getting to where I want it to be. One of the bigger vendor models, something like Claude, they could probably one-shot this. And if I had to maybe translate my vibe, I think it's fair to say that if that's your expectation, that you have a model that you could run on your laptop, and that it's as good as Claude is right now, then you're going to get disappointed. But if your expectation is, well, it's running on my own laptop, it can definitely maybe reduce some of the boilerplate, but I just shouldn't expect it to one-shot it, well, if you have that attitude, then I do think that we're here. We have models at our disposal that are pretty general that can actually help you do exactly this. And again, this is just a vibe check. I'm just checking out some Polar's code. There's other things you might want to do with code as well. But if you have this attitude, then I think you might have a really good time exploring these open source models, especially because the setup is just so easy now. In conclusion, as of right now, models that you can run comfortably on your own laptop, those models are just nowhere near the big vendor models right now. But if you're willing to adapt the way that you work, and maybe if you have different expectations, you can really get good mileage out of these models. If you're willing to maybe iterate one or two steps and maybe still do some manual work yourself, then this does feel like a genuine productivity boost. And that brings me to a somewhat strange benefit to working with a worse model, actually. Because you're dealing with a model that makes more mistakes, it also means that you're forced to be more in the loop. And that means that you're still practicing your own skill as you're interacting with an LLM. You're literally being forced to correct the LLM because you have to. That also brings me to one of the downsides of Claude Code, actually. Although I do think it's nice to be able to automate a whole lot of stuff, it does definitely feel that's just a little bit too easy to YOLO your way through, end up with a bunch of code, but that you also don't necessarily have any clue what's really happening under the hood. So yeah, maybe a worse model can be better in a weird way. In the end, whether or not these models are going to be useful for you depends a lot on the kind of workflow that you're interested in doing, and also, frankly, the kind of problem that you're interested in solving. What I'm exploring here is definitely notebook kind of work, and it's definitely well possible that these models might not perform as well in other scenarios. But what I do hope is that this video might make you just curious enough to give these models a spin yourself. And the reason is that I do think there's still so much more exploration to do. So if you end up exploring this yourself on your own machine, definitely feel free to let us know in the comments below or maybe on the Marimo Discord what the experience was and if there are features missing. I'm definitely curious to hear if you found these patterns yourself useful, but if there are other patterns that we have to be aware of, we're definitely all ears as well. So, hope you liked it, and I hope you give Olama with Marimo a spin.